We are up and running. How are you?
I'm fine. Great. Thank
Excellent.
you. How are you?
Oh, splendid. Really, really good. And how
Great.
are things in Italy now? Because I know you guys have been locked down pretty firm, but I think things are starting to ease a little bit now.
Yeah, well, now I'm based in Monaco. I cannot travel in Italy, but because, as you know, everything is locked down. And here in Monaco, I mean, they starting from the 3rd of June, step by step, they're gonna reopen everything. It's gonna take time, but it's gonna be better.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good for you. Right, I have some questions for you. And my very first question is, are you a boater who thought I could get into designing these, or are you a designer who thought I'd like to design boats? Which came first?
Well, basically it happened when you have to know, since I was a child, I was passionate about automotive and car design.
Okay.
And I were passing and spending all the season, the summer season, cruising with my family on board my sailing yacht, and we were sailing all around the Mediterranean. And of course, I was combining my passion for design, for the aesthetics about cars, and the culture about the sea. And I get used to see around me when we were anchoring on a bay or entering in any port we visited. I was passionate. That starts step by step to be passionate about yachting as well. And when I moved after my study, I moved in Trieste. I moved to Turin to study finally car design, automotive. Mm-hmm. Then I realized that actually to design a car was very exciting, was a big adrenaline, but nothing compared to the yachting, to the yacht design. Right. So I moved to the yacht design since I was studying. And at the school at that time, they allowed me, instead to present a car concept, I presented a yacht. So since then, I never left the yacht design field.
Fantastic. And so how did you actually break into it commercially?
Well, then, I was in love of these small craft, like a river runabout. Mm-hmm. And so really, let's say in a naive way, I called directly from a cabin phone. I called the shipyard and I said honestly that I was a student and I wanted to work as a designer. And at the beginning, they didn't trust, they didn't recognize my work. But then they accept an interview, and so everything started. And at the beginning, at the early stage, was like to design a spider, a speedster without wheels. So it was very connected as the car design approach. So it has been a really fantastic and full enthusiasm. Yeah.
That's a great way in.
Yeah.
But you've designed quite a bit since. I mean, I was having a look at some of the designs that you've done, and you've gone right across the board. I mean, what would you say is the biggest and the smallest that you've been involved in?
Well, let's say starting is a range of yachts I work. Involving in between, let's say 30 feet and 200 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, from 30 to 200, yes.
That's incredible. And which do you find the most satisfying? Because I would think that you've got challenges at both ends for very different reasons.
Yeah, correct. Well, as my automotive background, I'm very excited when, for example, Fairline launched the F-Line 33. It's very exciting. I'm so proud of, and because it represents exactly the car design approach into the yachting field, into the boating. And so, and finally, you know, you can cruise on, you can test the boat, you can go fast, you can understand that it's not just a scratch on the paper, but at the end you feel the wind, you feel the power of the engines, and it really transmits to you all the enthusiasm of even the design process, since the first sketch to the final yacht presented at the Cannes Yacht Show, where you can test it and you can enjoy everything. And so, for some reasons, let's say a boat, a concept like the 33 is something that transmits you a kind of adrenaline, and it's something that you can feel with your own hands. But when you build a bigger yacht, is something that is a different feeling. Basically, you approach the design on a different way. It's of course a bit more complex, and the result is something that let you really astonished, and it's something that you can, when you see, for example, some clients leaving the port and shaking your hand and laughing because of the joy of you know, starts the cruise, is something that really rests on your heart. So it's two different feelings, but both are really exciting, and you know, that's why I still working on a small project, like a small concept, exciting boats, and a big yacht up to 500 gross tons.
I think the Fairline connection is an interesting one, because obviously I'm English and Fairline are English. So when I saw you getting involved with Fairline, I thought that was quite exciting. And you've been with them, I think, 4 years now, is that right?
Yeah, more or less, yes.
So what was it about Fairline? Because Fairline's obviously a little bit of a departure for you, I would imagine. So why Fairline? Yeah. Why did you get involved with Fairline?
Well, as you may know, it has been a really exciting beginning, because they proposed a design challenge between the several designers, and I received a call during a really cold winter in February 4 years ago, and they offered me, you know, the chance to participate and to be involved in such an exciting challenge. And, you know, after several steps and design presentation, and step by step, I understood that I really had a good vision, the proper vision about the future range of the Fairline, you know, design. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine when I received the call and the answer, that I was actually the winner, and everyone trust on my design work, and they were ready to start a strong partnership. I felt really happy, and I felt that the Fairline was not just a shipyard where to start to make some you know, design components or some called partnership, that they really welcomed me and my studio in a very friendly way. And I think that's a big plus of the Fairline community. They are all really good people, and they always approach the design and the design process and in a friendly way, you know. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you feel that you brought to Fairline? Because I think, you know, you've certainly had an impact on them. And what do you think you've changed fundamentally in the design?
Well, I think I improved definitely the styling, and I emphasize the main lines, the main characteristics of the Fairline heritage. And right. I brought the heritage into the future, thinking about how to enhance the styling as much as possible. And, you know, I think actually Fairline, the design team, they unleash my creativity to create really the best, with trying to avoid as much as they could any restriction.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you mentioned that, because the F-33 in particular, I thought, and you know, tell me whether I'm wrong, but it felt almost to me like a sort of a concept boat, like that was completely purely your design, but they didn't change anything. So you normally, when you see concept cars, for example, at motor shows, you see this great thing and they say they bring it into production, but when it gets into production, it looks different to what the concept did. But the F-33 strikes me as a boat that remained very pure.
Yeah, correct. I'm very proud of it because, you know, sometimes when a designer presents a concept and then start to improve or to talk to the engineer, the final result doesn't arrive to more than 90 or 95% of the initial design. But here, really, I think it has been a real goal, a big achievement, because they accept, they understood that the concept was very nice, and proportionally talking, the boat was working. And actually, I have to be honest, the boat when it was launched into the water, I remember the presentation in London, and to see the boat on the water was actually even better than any rendering made by my studio. So, and this is the best result a designer can achieve. When the yacht in the reality looks much better than a rendering, is a big goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it works very well as a boat as well as a piece of design. Certainly, having had a good look around it, it can. It's a surprisingly functional boat, I think, for a boat that looks so sleek and so sporty.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is one of the reasons why, actually the main reason why we won the award in Düsseldorf in Germany this year in January, because I think you know how it was a big challenge, and in between us actually very important brands, and they recognize in the Fairline F933 the best compromise. You know, as a designer, I was compared and judged in between Pininfarina and many other designers, and you can imagine for me how proud and how important it was to win such a really important prize.
Absolutely, yeah. And in fact, I was looking, you've won a few awards at Fairline. I've got a little list of them here. You've won, where are we? You have won design, annual Yacht World Trophies in Cannes in 17, 18 and 19. Targa 63 GTO, Best Exterior Design 2017. Targa 43, Best Exterior Design 18. Squadron 68, Best Interior Design 19. Targa 43, one of the Motorboat Yachting Award. And of course, obviously, they give the award to the F-Line 33 this year. So, I mean, that must make you very proud, I would think. That must have quite an impact.
Yeah, well, it's a really huge recognition, and you know, it helps to move on. But I never stop. I never get crazy and say, okay, let's just celebrate. I think it's just you know, journalists that recognize your work, very important, because we work hard to present yachts at the yacht show, and you can imagine how important it is to see people excited and enthusiastic about our design. But most important is the team. Sometimes you can be the best designer, but when you don't have a big empathy with the team you work with, it doesn't work. But here, I think since the beginning we understood each other, and we understood it was a great team, and you know, when team works, everything ends great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it certainly worked for you there. So what's new? What's coming for Fairline? Because you're still very much involved with them, I believe.
Yeah, we are developing some new projects, and there is the GTB. Mm-hmm. And well, where you have seen some preliminary renderings, we're going to have this beautiful beach club opening terraces on site, which is going to be really, really amazing. Yeah. And then I think that a new Fairline about 38, 39 feet, which actually I'm looking forward to move on and to design all details, because I think it's the boat I'm gonna buy for myself to cruise here on the French Riviera. So
Really?
you can imagine it could be a how to say, an opportunity for me as a designer to create my own yacht, not just a Fairline concept.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of my favorite Fairlines from the past was the very first Targa, which was a Targa 33. And that boat launched, I think I'm right in saying, in 1986. And the way that that boat came about, and it was a massively successful boat for Fairline back in the day, was the company then was owned by a guy called Sam Newington. And the biggest Fairline sports boat that was built then was a Sun Fury, which was 26 foot. And Sam had a house in the south of France in, I can't remember exactly where it was now, but he had a house down there. He had a boat, of course, a Fairline outside the house, and he wanted a bigger sports cruiser. So that Fairline that he built, that 33-foot Fairline, and that was 33 foot to the transom, so it'd be more like a 37 now, was him saying, okay, this is what we want. If we're putting a boat in the south of France and going boating, this is the boat that we want ourselves. And he almost kind of built a boat for himself. And then because he was a boater and he was going boating, of course, that worked brilliantly. And that started off the Targa range. And so it sounds like history repeating itself. It sounds like you're going to do that again.
Kind of destiny. Yeah, it's correct. Because, you know, I think any yacht designer needs to experience and go boating around, because you cannot design a yacht if you don't know what it means when you're anchoring on a bay, or when you are just you and your girlfriend maybe, and you don't know a crew, you don't have a proper crew on board. Sometimes you are just you alone. Yeah. And it's for me it has been extremely important to experience the sea, and to have a culture, and then to start to as a beginner to buy my first 27 footers, and then 42 footers around now. And it's extremely important to go boating and to understand how it works, maneuvering and everything, ergonomy, proportion, everything.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely, and it's something that you find when I obviously go on an awful lot of boats. I mean, that's what I do, and sometimes you'll go on a boat and you'll think, the guy who designed this has never been on a boat, because this works great at a boat show, you know, when the boat's static on a stand, but that's never going to work when you're coming into a port, you know, at sort of 7 o'clock at night, and the wind's blowing and you've got to tie the boat up and you can't get to the front or whatever else it might be. You know, so I think that element, that user element, and that boating background is so important. Yeah,
definitely. It's extremely important, of course.
So this boat that you're talking about, I think you mentioned 37 foot. Is that going to be a bigger F line, or is that going to be more like a smaller Targa?
Well, I think it's going to be something in between. We are thinking about how to develop the concept. I tell you the truth, I'm also very passionate about walk-around design type, like, you know, where you have the T-top and a walk-around area. Yeah. As a day cruise, as actually personally, my vision is a good market for Fairline could be, you know, a chase boat or a mega yacht tender, like a 50, 60 footers walk-around boat to cruise around as a chase tender. That could be great as well. I think that's my dream boat, actually.
Yeah, totally. And where would you keep it, and what would you do with it? Where would you go?
Well, I love to cruise from Monaco to Marseille. I discover many places and bay and islands that I didn't know before, because I've been always cruising in Croatia, into the Kronati Islands, which they are very, very nice. Like we used to call it the Polynesian Adriatic Sea, because there are, I don't know how many islands, one close to each other, and you can spend, I don't know, months discovering bays. But here in the French Riviera, on this side, I think is the is much more charming, and you can discover new island, new people, new culture. You know, when I spent the time during my childhood, I spent I don't know how many years cruising from San Remo, all the Mediterranean down to Greece, and then Turkey until Antalya, and then back heading up to Trieste. So you can imagine it was not just enjoying the sailing and the time on the sea, but even to discover a new world, new culture, new people, and that's the main experience I think every owner dreams to achieve when they buy a boat, a yacht, no matter the size.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's an important thing to consider and remember, is the fact that, you know, I think people think that buyers are buying a boat, and I think the reality is they're not buying a boat. What they're buying is an experience, and the boat facilitates that experience.
Yes, exactly. That's
So,
what my father transmits to me, and I keep it as a really, really important heritage, and it helps me daily actually to approach any design project. Yeah, and to talk to owners. You know, sometimes you talk to owners who buy a 50 meters yacht, and sometimes you are in the position to talk to young guys who want to enjoy a 33 Fairline. It's nice to see how owners think and how they approach in a different way the boating, you know, the way how to explore the sea. And to me, as a designer, it's extremely important to talk to anyone, no matter the size. Boating is, you know, worldwide. Is a unique experience.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So aside from the practicalities of what people want, where does your actual design inspiration come from? Where do you get the feel for it?
Well, if I feel very well inspired when I'm traveling. I travel a lot when I have time. Especially during Christmas time or in August, I try to travel and to visit as many places as possible. And even sometimes because of my work, I'm obliged to visit clients and to visit new countries. But to me, the island of St. Barth is a very special place where I can relax and think about design, because, you know, especially in a winter time, it's a concentration of the worldwide yachting into a small island in the middle of the Caribbean, which have the same atmosphere of the French Riviera. So you can imagine the contrast, and the result is something really amazing. And you see on a bay even up to 100 or even 150 yachts anchored and arranged in between 20 footers and 250 feet. So it's crazy. You can understand the scale factor, and you can see how crew manage the big super yacht, and how people enjoy boating on the small yacht boats, and it's really amazing. And then the nature, I'm inspired by the nature. I've been traveling in the Hawaii island called Kauai, which I recommend to anyone if someone wants to feel the nature and get inspired. So to me, island of St. Barth and Kauai is really the best place where to get inspired.
Fantastic. And what's the future for boating? What's coming? What are the up and coming trends? What are we going to look out for?
Well, it's very interesting question. You know, for some reason, I'm afraid the new owners are going to the demand, actually, the demand is going to be more often the like a box, a glass boxes to remind to a house, to a modern villa. That could be dangerous. It depends how designer will translate it into a a boat, a yacht. Because as you see now, we start to emphasize the height of glass proportion, transparency as much as we can. And this could be, you know, it's good because you enhance and you improve the life on board and the visibilities and the contact with the sea. But the thing that made me a bit afraid is that we end up to create a shoes box, you know, like an Apple store.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling I have, but I'm here to translate it into something nice. We don't have to forget that even the eye has to be pleased when you look at a yacht. I don't think, for example, an owner, when they anchor their yacht in Cala di Volpe in Sardinia, they take the tender to go and to have a nice dinner and a restaurant, and once back on the way back to the yacht, I think it's important to recognize a Fairline and to see a distinctive line, and not, you know, just to see a block of glass. So I'm here to try to translate the trend into something working in all perspective and all the aesthetics.
I've always felt that must be the biggest challenge as a yacht designer, because if you actually think about how yachts get used most of the time when they're not at sea, and to be fair, you know, most of the time they're not at sea, they're in a marina, they're in an anchorage, they're being dined on, swum off, whatever else. The perfect shape actually is, well, what you just said, it's a square box. If you take a 50-foot boat, the squarer that you can make it, the more volume you're going to get, and volume is what sells the boats. But equally, I think to get the person on the boat in the first place and impressed by all that, it's got to look right. They've got to look at that boat right from the off before they step on board and go, yeah, I want that. Let's go and look on board a bit.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, you can imagine, because of the restriction and the limit you have, if you can get the same volume on a 60-footer than what you have on a 80-footers, of course, anyone is going to buy a 60-footer. And how to get more volume, increasing the height.
Yeah.
So the problem is then the proportion, because you can imagine we all shipyards are trying to increase the height, mm-hmm. and keeping the limit in length.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the ability for the designer is to create a good proportion. If you look for me, and I think it's the Fairline I like mostly, and the one I prefer is the GTO.
Right.
The GTO, I was here in Monaco in Porter Cool, and I was looking at the GTO, which is docked just here beside my studio. And it looks, from the stern, it looks a much bigger size yacht, you know, mm-hmm. even if it's just a 65. And it's really important to you know, improve the shape, improve the ergonomy. But to me, the GTO, it keeps a nice proportion. So at the end, it's very important to you know, to work a lot on the aesthetics and to work together with the shipyard to try to analyze, yes, the trend, but keeping in mind that we cannot create just the boxes, because people doesn't use so often the boat on the sea, and they don't care if they're gonna experience a rough sea or, you know. A boat to me is always a boat with a hull, and it's made not to run as a car on the street, on the highway, but it's made to cruise on the sea.
Yeah, absolutely. So if a manufacturer came to you and said, okay, Alberto, there you go, there's a clean sheet of paper, I'm going to give you no direction, no size, no anything, you design what you want to design, what would be your ultimate, if you were given a completely blank sheet, what would you design? What would you come up with? What size, what type, what style?
Well, as you mentioned to you before, I've been, I grew up on a sailing yacht.
Okay.
And so to me, the purity of lines of the sailing are still today remind me always to the purest way how to cruise on a sea. You know, when you switch off the engines and you just enjoy the breeze sailing around. But of course, then my real passion is the power boats, and to me the mix of the two is going to be really exciting. So if you're telling me a blank sheet of paper and start sketching, I have immediately in mind 80 footers, you know, inspired by the Mega Sailor, with two big engines to cruise up to 40 knots, and with a really streamlined, sleek profile. That's my dream boat, but this is just my personal vision as a dreamer and a visionary designer.
Of course. And it's all about the beauty. And this is interesting. I have another question for you, which is, why are Italians the best designers in the world? Because it's not just boats, it's the best cars, the best clothes, the best handbags. Always people want Italian. Why are the Italians the best designers in the world?
Well, it's a cool factor that actually we have as a, I think as a culture, is a bel paese, is a nice, the country where as you know, the Italian country is very well known for our art. And actually, I didn't mention to you before, but one of my main inspiration is also the art. And so I always spend time visiting museum, and you know, in Italy is like an encyclopedia of all the history of the human being.
Right.
So that is maybe one of the main reasons why we are so you know, focused on the aesthetics and you know, everything related to fashion, design, and yeah, even sometimes engineering.
Yeah, it comes across in all. I say, you look at an Italian car, for example. I mean, you know, Ferraris and even small Fiats and things like that. They're always got the aesthetic right. You know, you go right back to the sort of 60s and things like that, and they're always a great looking object. And everything that seems to come out of Italy is.
Yeah, it's true. I see how even the you know, the engineer in Italy, the designer, even colleague of mine or friends are so, you know, focused on the design. When they step on board a yacht, even my design or other designer, they immediately check even the little details. We are so maniacs about the perfection.
Yeah.
And that is like an engine to pushing all the Italians on the manufacturing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent. That's really good. I'm just having a look, see if I've got any more questions for you. I think we must be pretty much there. Let's have a look. I've written some stuff down and I think we've covered it. So I think, thank you ever so much for your time. It's been really interesting to talk to you and really fascinating to see where your inspiration and your ideas come from. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Great. It was a pleasure.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I'll wind this up here, but thanks again, and we will look forward to seeing what comes out of your pen next.
Of course. Stay tuned.
Absolutely.
Talk soon.
Okay. You take care.
Bye bye. Ciao.
Bye-bye.